Hello folks, this is the Dudes Motor Vlogs. I'm your boy Mad Dog, and we're here in Cabernet area in Cadillac, Michigan. Doing a little bit of riding here on my 2016 Honda CRF 250L. We'll go out here and do some riding, have some fun. Well, that'd be a good one there. They would spit the bike out right out from underneath you, throw you right into that tree. Wow, look at that. You can see that's fresh. See, it rolled the bark right off it where it broke off. Wow. That's a huge tree too. I mean, look at my hand next to it. That's huge. Well, you don't see that too often. What the fuck? Or any information on the CRF 250Ls and about running a 12-tooth countershaft sprocket, because I have a 13 on there to gear it lower. I mean, from the fact that it comes with a 14, I have a 13 on there. I'd like to go to a 12, but I don't know if there's room or not, like if the chain would rub on the swing arm, because it kind of rubs now with the 13. I mean, it has like a rubber pad there for the chain, but I mean, this bike's only got like 900 some miles on it, and it's already wearing half through that rubber pad. So I didn't know if it was just because I was running too small a sprocket, or if that's just how they are. But it definitely needs like a 12-tooth sprocket in the front, and I don't know, maybe a 52 sprocket in the rear to be able to do this and lose about 100 pounds, which I know the 100-pound part, you just have to buy a different bike. But when people say trail riding, this is what I think of trail riding, because this is what's by me, and these bikes are not good at all at this. I know a lot of people trail riding is going down like fire roads, but I mean, we have those by me here too, but I don't know, that's kind of boring on a motorcycle. I like to go down these whip-de-doos and hills and big ruts and going over logs and stuff. You know, something that's actually a little challenging for a motorcycle. It lets you know if a motorcycle's any good or not, if it can do it. If you get on a motorcycle and won't do it, you know it's a shitty motorcycle. I think what the bike I want to get next is maybe like a Kawasaki, like a KDX 200 or 220, like a trail bike, and make it a dual sport so I can ride it on the street, because I ride it out to the woods, so you got to have it street legal. Well, here in Michigan, even to go down this, you have to have a street legal bike, you know what I mean, to be legal, because a lot of these trails come out to roads, like, you know, it's not trail to trail, it's, you'll have these narrow trails and it'll come out to like a bigger road, and you have to have a license plate to go down those. And they'll stop you and give you a ticket for it because you don't have a license plate. So it's like if you buy a dirt bike, you got to get it, you know, street legaled. which I think I want to get like a KDX 200 and make it street legal. Because those are great woods bikes because they're small and lightweight, but they have power, easy to work on, simple bikes, and you can buy them dirt cheap. You see them for $1,000–1,500 all the time. It's just getting hard to find them clean. I think 2005 or 2006 was the last year for them because it was a 2-stroke. Because then after that you had to buy a 4-stroke. Oh, what was it? A KLR 250, and a couple years later they changed it to a KLX 250. I had a 2007. It was a pretty good bike. It was better than the CRF Honda. Well, foot pegs hitting the ground. I don't know if the camera you could hear that, but all that clunking noise was the foot pegs hit twice on the ground, and I was bouncing through those rocks and logs there. Wow, this bike's way too big and heavy to be doing that. This bike, like, the power is unpredictable because half the time you nail it, it doesn't do anything. Then sometimes you nail it and it goes. So it's unpredictable. You don't know what it's going to do. Because when the one out of 20 times you nail it and it goes, you're not expecting it to go like that. You're expecting it to not do anything. Just make some, grunting and bogging sounds. Once in a great while, it'll actually go when you push on it. Which, if it did it all the time, would be no big deal because you'd be used to it. But you're not expecting it because normally it doesn't do anything. I really don't care for this bike. I wouldn't recommend this bike to anyone unless they ride mostly on like just dirt roads. Then it's fine at that, but that's really about it. It's not good at going down these single tracks at all. Hear it popping and spitting? This bike has fuel injection. It pops and spits in neutral. I can't say I've ever had a bike that was tuned that badly. Right from the factory. And have fuel injection. I didn't know that was even possible. But apparently it is. The nicest thing about this bike is the suspension. It has, I mean, it's not really soft. Like my CRF 230L, that suspension was a lot softer than this. But it didn't have a lot of travel, where this has quite a bit of suspension travel. But it's pretty stiff, so the bike doesn't rock a lot. Because like it kind of makes you sick when you ride some of them bikes and they rock a lot, especially like you're doing this kind of stuff. It's kind of annoying, or at least it's annoying to me. I don't really care for that a lot. Like this bike's a lot stiffer, so it doesn't get that rocking motion, from front to back. But definitely the best thing about this bike is the suspension. And it's not great, it's just, that's the best thing about it. I've had bikes with better suspension. The closest suspension I've seen on a motorcycle that I've owned, I had a 2007 Kawasaki KLX 250, and that had the old style where you could adjust compression and rebound front and back on on the suspension. You could adjust it, and that had, I think it was around 10.5 inches of travel, 10.5. That suspension worked better than this. It was like softer and it was more plush and it absorbed the bumps better, and it had more travel than this. And it was definitely softer, but the bike did rock a lot. But you know, I mean, it's acceptable when the bike rides like a baby buggy, like that bike did. But I think it's kind of a secret, because those KLX 250s, it was 2006 and 2007 were the only 2 years that bike was the same. Because then for 2008 they didn't make it, because that was the like recession years. Well, then 2009 they came out with a new model. It was the same bike, but they updated it, and they took away all the adjustability on the shocks, and it had less suspension. I think it had like 2 inches less travel front and rear, and they made the bike like 40 pounds heavier, but they didn't update the engine to like fuel injection or nothing, like where it had more power. It was already pretty slow, so it was like, well, you add another 40 pounds to that and take away a couple inches of suspension and all your adjustability for the suspension. Like, I mean, yeah, the bike looked better, but by far the 2006 and 7 was actually a better bike. Yeah, it looked more outdated than the new one, but it was actually a better bike. But I mean, the engine, trans, and everything was the same, because it seemed like the motor and transmission was bulletproof in it, and the frame was strong. I mean, I used to just air that bike out, and I never worry about breaking it at all. I've had a lot of motorcycles, you air them out and you can break stuff or blow the forks out and stuff. That bike, I never had any trouble at all with that. Where I think this bike, if I got as much air on this bike as I did on that Kawasaki, you'd probably end up breaking something. If not the bike, probably you. Because this bike doesn't fly through the air like that Kawasaki did. That bike flew through the air nice. This bike's kind of unpredictable. It doesn't really fly that great. I think because it's so heavy, it kind of, well, I mean, it helps it has good dampening, but it just flies through the air weird when you ride it. It's not like it doesn't give you a sure feel like when you're going off big jumps with this thing. And it only having 8.5 inches of travel, it does bottom out. Like the Kawasaki having like 10.5 inches of travel, especially if you adjust it a little stiffer, it didn't really bottom out over the big jumps where this thing does. You know, you take this on the same trails, it has more trouble than that Kawasaki did. And the Kawasaki is just more fun to ride. You know, it's like a narrower, lighter bike. I'd actually like to drive one of the 2018, the KLX 250, the street legal version, because for 18 they brought it back to the United States, because for a couple years there they didn't sell it here in the United States. They sold it overseas but not here. And now when it came back, they revamped it a little bit. I mean, it's not an all new bike or nothing, it's the same old bike, but they put fuel injection and there's a few other updates on it, stuff like. And you can get it in camouflage black and gray, which looks pretty cool. They had it at the Kawasaki dealer here by me. I really wanted one, but I think it was like $51.99 was the sticker price. So probably out the door with tax, I would assume with tax and whatever else, whatever they decide to tack on, I'm sure it's about $6,000 for that bike out the door. But it looked like a really nice bike, because I liked the old one I had.